Congress could be moving closer to a compromise on a coronavirus stimulus package. Yesterday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer urged Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to agree on a $908 billion bipartisan package as a framework for negotiations. Now, lawmakers are scrambling to pass the bill before some key programs expire this month. An estimated 12 million people are scheduled to lose unemployment aid the day after Christmas. If you can believe that. And eviction protections and a student loan payment freeze both expire on December 31. CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us with more. Nancy, so support for this plan is kind of a concession from Pelosi. I know that in Washington and in the media, we like to make this a game of chess between Republicans and Democrats. And I understand that it may be seen as Majority Leader Mitch McConnell getting the better of Pelosi. But I'm thinking about those folks who are suffering, and they don't really care about the machinations of politicians in Washington. And maybe that's what Speaker Pelosi is going for.
Look, I think she's being realistic. She said that she was doing this in the spirit of bipartisanship. Really, she's doing it in the spirit of reality. She understands the cards that she has to play right now. She realizes that her party does not control the Senate, at least right now. It doesn't control the White House, at least not right now. And so the $2 trillion plan that she has been sticking to for months is just not going to happen. And so if you think about the fact she started at $3.4 trillion, that is the bill that was passed by the House several months ago. Then she came down to $2 trillion in her talks with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. She even walked away from those talks because she felt $2 trillion was too low. Now she's coming down again to $900 billion. And that still may not be enough to cause a deal to happen here. And that is because her counterpart in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is sticking to his guns at something about half the size. He is doing his own negotiations with his own Senate Republican conference, many of whom don't want to spend any money at all. And so, yes, this is a huge concession from Pelosi. Some would say it's just a nod to the political reality that exists right now, but it still may not be enough.
So glaringly absent from this proposal, though, are those stimulus checks, that $1,200 that just went to households to spend on whatever they needed to spend it on to get by. Is there a chance that the provision could be included in a new version of this bill?
I think it's possible, but it's pretty unlikely because that provision alone costs hundreds of billions of dollars. And the bipartisan group of lawmakers who spoke to each other to try to come up with some kind of middle ground between where McConnell is and where Pelosi is, they realized that the numbers just weren't going to work. So they didn't put that into this particular package. What they did do was put in a couple $100 billion for state and local governments that are really strapped right now. Some of these states say that given how much it's going to cost for them to very rapidly deliver the vaccine to their populations, they really, really need some help here. There's going to be a lot of money for testing and for schools, more money for small businesses, but it isn't going to include that $1,200 check. It doesn't mean that Congress couldn't come back and do more in the new year, but this is just a nod to the fact that if anything is going to happen before the holidays, it's going to have to take into account that there are Republicans who don't want to spend any money, and there are Democrats who want to spend a lot.
So we talked a little bit about this, Nancy. The Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is pushing again for his $500 billion proposal, which is half of what we've got on the table right now. Are we entering a world as President-elect Biden begins to prepare to assume office next month where all of a sudden Republicans are fiscally conservative and they worry about spending money, where for the last 4 years didn't matter what President Trump wanted to do, wanted to divert money from the military to build a wall in Mexico, let's do that. But all of a sudden now we're hearing, oh no, this is too expensive, we can't go with that. Is that what we're seeing?
And that is absolutely what you're seeing, and you're going to see a lot more of it. And frankly, if you're Mitch McConnell, would you rather pass a $500 billion to $1 trillion package now and kind of have that be on the GOP's ledger and on this Republican president's ledger? Or would you rather be dragged to do it kicking and screaming once Joe Biden is president and say, look, it was Joe Biden who spent all this money. Republicans didn't want to do it. Mitch McConnell may feel that that is a better road for him to go down. He may not want to set the precedent of the fact that Republicans are willing to undertake big spending measures, because they want to be able to say later that the government doesn't have this money to spend. Beyond that, there is, a Republican strain of thought that the light is at the end, is coming, that there is going to be a vaccine, the economy will improve, and he is just trying to straddle the differences within his own party between a lot of Republicans who frankly would vote tomorrow for this bipartisan plan if it was put up for a vote. They're hearing from their own governor saying, we need this money. They know that a lot of people in their own states are out of work. But he's also got a lot of Republican senators who are saying, this is not what the GOP stands for. The debt is already too high. The economy is going to bounce back on its own, and we shouldn't be spending this money. So that's why McConnell is where he is.
Yeah, and you talk about some of the senators that are sort of concerned about spending money. They're probably also concerned about, depending on when and they are up for re-election, how good of a memory their constituents are going to have. It's one thing to vote in favor of massive spending when you're not up for re-election for another 2 years or something. But if you're up for re-election around the corner, your constituents who may not be in favor of all that spending may still remember what you did, and so they're all sort of considering that as well. But let us talk about President-elect Joe Biden. He hosted a virtual roundtable yesterday where he urged Congress to come together and pass a relief package. I want to play a little of that sound.
This isn't a political game. This impacts on people's real lives and families. It impacts on all of you, all of us. And we need to get help out the door as soon as we can.
All right, so the president-elect has said that no matter what happens now, once he takes office, he'll pursue a sweeping stimulus bill. Do we know what that bill might include?
We don't know because he hasn't said, and part of that is strategic. If he were to lay out exactly what he wanted in his stimulus bill a couple of months down the road, there would be a lot less pressure on Congress to do some of those things now. So he's obviously watching to see what, if anything, Congress does now so that, he can plan accordingly for his own legislation. Obviously, if Congress were to allocate let's say $200 billion for state and local governments, then that's money that he might not need to spend in his own package. But I do think that you could anticipate that what he wants to do is a lot like what Speaker Pelosi wanted to do. He wants to help out state, local, tribal governments. He wants to maybe do another round of stimulus checks. He wants to help out transit agencies that are really suffering right now, and the airlines and other big industries, the travel industry that's been hit so hard by this pandemic. I think he's going to have a big wish list, but it is also going to depend on what happens in those 2 Senate races in Georgia in early January, because if Republicans retain control of the Senate, his wish list is going to have to change pretty dramatically if he wants to get Mitch McConnell engaged on another rescue package.
Nancy, just paint a picture for us, given your years of experience covering Washington. I'm curious what March will look like. If this drags on into the presidency of the president-elect, part of Joe Biden's pitch to the American people is, and he's been saying it now recently, look, I know these individuals in the Senate. I know Mitch McConnell. I've been able to get things done, whereas others were not able to get things done. He and I will be able to hammer out a compromise. But it'll be interesting if this becomes the focus of the first 3 months of a Biden administration. And I don't know that they want that to be the focus of an administration, and it all depends, I guess, on how Georgia plays out. But I wonder what between now and March, what we could see around this? Will Republicans, if you believe the reporting, for example, of folks like Carl Bernstein, they say, look, there are a lot of Republicans who really don't like President Trump, but they toe the line because they don't want to get, a mean tweet on Twitter. There are these senators that are potentially thinking about running for president themselves in 2024. How do you see the first 3 months playing out? Will we see some compromise, or will they dig in and you'll see the remnants of Trumpism still alive?
I definitely think that those remnants, it'll be more than remnants. It'll be a very powerful strain within the Republican Party that will that Biden will have to contend with because it is still going to be there. I think that what March looks like is hugely dependent on these Senate races. So let's just set that aside and acknowledge that if Democrats do somehow manage to take control of the Senate, everything is going to look different. Biden will be able to get his cabinet picks confirmed quickly. Democrats will be deciding whether to do away with a filibuster so that they can pass a huge relief package and any other legislation that they're interested in passing. So that's what it looks like if Democrats take control. If Democrats don't take control, Biden, yes, he has a long-time relationship with McConnell, but McConnell is going to want to establish his power and set himself up as the opposition party. He is not just going to sort of come out and say, great, let's do a big package together if that violates what many Republicans believe is conservative orthodoxy. And so, I think 2008, if we're really going way back, is pretty instructive. We had a very similar situation, a Democratic president coming into office with an economy that was in real trouble. And he assumed that he would sort of get this initial outburst of goodwill from the opposition party. But instead, Barack Obama basically had to rely on his own party to pass a massive stimulus bill, auto bailout, because Republicans said they didn't want any part of it. Now, maybe they were glad that it happened, but they really didn't do much to help get it over the finish line. And they didn't control the Senate back then. They do now. So that is going to make it even harder for President-elect Biden to do the things that he wants to do if in fact he's dealing with divided government.
All right, Nancy, thank you so much. You painted a perfect picture there. Thank you.
Thank you.